I've been thinking about this for a while. You see, the thing about MAGA and Donald Trump and Trumpism is that it's not just him, right? That it's not just even his cabinet members or his agency or the entirety of the GOP. Millions of Americans, tens of millions of Americans, voted for soullessness, voted for depravity, have been cheering it on for the past 10 years. And for me, I've said as a student of history, as a child of immigrants to this country, I understand America's flaws. Deeply understand America's flaws. I'm a Black queer woman that lives inside of this country that finds ways to thrive in a country that has been set up to deprive me of every opportunity at a fulfilling life, at access to abundance, at access to the American dream. So I know America's flaws. What I ask myself these days, though, is whether or not America's soul is now gone forever. That the presence of Donald Trump and the Trump regime, the things that they are cutting, the things that they are celebrating and championing, the policies that they are passing, isn't just about 4 years. It's about transforming America entirely away from even the idealistic dreams of our founders who were slaveholders and rapists. But still, inside of their flawed humanity, believed in a government for and by the people. And we would expand upon that vision over centuries. But now, one man, one sick man, and his tens of millions of followers are threatening the very fabric of not only who we are today, but who we are to become. And so I wonder, as we live stream a genocide, as we've cut aid to hundreds of thousands, millions of people around the world that needed USAID, and now will die from preventable diseases. Also, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos could buy more boats and try and fill the void inside of themselves with more stuff. I wonder. And today, you'll wonder with me. Has Trump poisoned America's soul forever? Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show, my dear friends. Let's get into it. I begin today with a story that broke over the weekend. And like I said yesterday, there's just so much news, and not a lot of it matters in the grand scheme of things, but there's just so much. You're just inundated with so much news that this story, one that is profoundly important, I didn't have the opportunity to discuss yesterday. And so we're going to unpack it today. And it's a topic that, well, is fraught with a lot of feelings, a lot of feelings that I don't really understand. Because as a humanist, as a person who believes in the dignity and respect of all people, I don't understand why there are sides to Israel's genocide against Palestine and the Palestinian people. I don't think that you need to be a geopolitical scholar. I don't think that you need anything other than eyes, ears, and a heart to see the images of this devastated place that even before the incessant bombings of schools and mosques and every single hospital, every single university, the murders of hundreds of journalists, there are more children that have been murdered by Israel since October 7th. The horrific acts of October 7th that no one is saying wasn't horrific. That no one is saying wasn't terrible. That no one is discounting anti-Semitism and hate. But my God, do nearly 100,000 people, more children, have died in this war against the Palestinian people than in all the wars combined? More children, and died is not even the fucking word. You die from cancer. You die from disease. You die from a car accident. This is murder. And it's not enough that you drove 2 million people from the open air prison that we refer to as Gaza. It wasn't enough that you bombed even the little that they were allowed to have, killing entire fucking families. Babies in NICUs blown up. It wasn't enough. So now you manufacture a famine. After driving those people from their homes, then you tell them it's okay for them to return, only so that you can herd them into one space, denying them access to water, food, electricity, medical care, all because you're talking about Hamas and terrorists. I talk today because I pulled back from having conversations about what was happening in Gaza, and I stopped and pulled back on having those conversations because I said, what difference does it make? They're still killing them. They're still starving them to death. What can I do as one person with a small platform say that has not already been said? But then I saw this. Greta Thunberg joins aid ship sailing to Gaza aimed at breaking Israel's blockade. Game of Thrones actor Liam Cunningham, also on Freedom Flotilla voyage to deliver aid to devastated territory. The climate campaigner, this is according to The Guardian, Greta Thunberg and 11 other activists have set sail for Gaza on a ship aimed at breaking Israel's siege of the devastated territory, organizers have said. The sailing boat, Madeleine, operated by the activist group Freedom Flotilla Coalition, departed from the port of Catania in Sicily, southern Italy, on Sunday. It would try to reach the shores of the Gaza Strip to bring in some aid and raise international awareness of the continuing humanitarian crisis. The activists said at a press conference on Sunday before the vessel departed. We are doing this because no matter what odds we are against, we have to keep trying, Thunberg said, bursting into tears during her speech. And it was the word trying that we have to keep trying with whatever voice we have, with whatever platform we have, with whatever space we have, with whatever microphone we have, with whatever voice we have got to keep trying. Because the goal of fascism, the goal of autocracy, the goal of Israel's apartheid is to make us believe that their power is inevitable, that their rule is indefinite, and that we, the people, in order to have some semblance of the lie of safety, must keep our heads down and our mouths shut. That if we are to survive, we must cease trying to want any more, to be any more than what they tell us that we are. So when I saw that word, trying, I said, who am I to give up? Who am I to throw my hands up and say, well, what difference does my voice make? What difference do all of our voices make? Because you see, it starts with one and then it becomes many. Because courage is contagious. She went on to say, because the moment we stop trying is when we lose our humanity. And no matter how dangerous this mission is, it's not even near as dangerous as the silence of the entire world in the face of the live streamed genocide. I want to say that again, because the moment we stop trying is when we lose our humanity. And no matter how dangerous this mission is, it's not even near as dangerous as the silence of the entire world in the face of the live streamed genocide. That's what this is. We get on our phones. We go on whatever social media platform, and we're marketed to. And in the midst of all of that marketing, whether it's a lipstick here and a fucking drink here and a hotel here, we scroll past the faces of emaciated children. We scroll past rubble that used to be somebody's home. Rubble that used to be a hospital that took care of the sick and the ill. That under that rubble are the bodies of patients and doctors and nurses and administrators and people who were trying to save lives. Underneath the rubble are school children who, even in the midst of occupation and apartheid, were trying to get an education to better themselves and their families. And we look at that rubble and we scroll past it to be sold to and marketed to. And we numb ourselves with the stuff. Because to actually look and to take it in and to recognize that what we are looking at isn't them, it is also us. Palestine and what we have allowed to happen there is who we are. It is to say that whenever the oppressed then find themselves in power, when that power is unchecked, they weaponize that grief that they had and project it onto others as a way to say, it will never be us again because it will always be them. That is what we have seen. We've been told for decades that a two-state solution is impossible. That in order to secure the safety of one people, another people have to be in shackles. I'm not a geopolitical expert. I'm not a foreign affairs analyst. I'm a Black queer woman in America, where they once told us that Black people couldn't be left to their own devices. Our brains were too small, too stupid. We could only be used for brute force and to birth laborers to hold up white supremacy. That the only value that Black people had was in what we could produce for whiteness. You don't need to be an international scholar to believe what your eyes are showing you. No one who is oppressed has the power to turn off someone else's power, to shut somebody else's mouth, to throw somebody else in jail because you don't like that they are mirroring to you who the fuck you actually are, which is a monster. Because no good person starves children. Just like no good people put tiny shackles on the legs of babies, which is what white enslavers did on auction blocks in these United States. Where do you think that Israel got the blueprint for their handiwork against the Palestinians? Where do you think Hitler got the blueprint for his handiwork against the Jews? Where do you think the Afrikaners got their handiwork for their blueprint against Black South Africans. It all started with America. Those dictators, autocrats, white nationalists looked at the project of American segregation and said, I like your handiwork. Let me see if I can fine tune it and do something better, put an accent on it. I have asked from when I was young, how could slavery happen? How could the Holocaust happen? How do seemingly sane people with working hearts, how do you allow these things to happen? And now, as a grown fucking woman with eyes wide open, looking around, I say, oh, this is how. Because for far too long, Americans in particular have been able to put an arm's length between them and the rest of the world, stealing and extracting and then turning around and turning other people's wealth into donations, philanthropic efforts of America from stolen property and goods and stolen people. You can never really clean house unless you go in all the closets and you take out all the skeletons. America just keeps putting things and dusting things underneath the rug. And they say to you, oh, that could never be us. Those people over there, they're depraved. They worship a different God. They do this, they do that. They have different melanin. Ooh, it could never be us. Gaza is a mirror to what the world is willing to tolerate and allow. Because everybody said, just like they did during the Holocaust, just like they did for hundreds of years with the Atlantic slave trade, it's not our problem. Until it is. And then you have people like this piece of trash, Will Chamberlain, who said the Israelis could do the funniest thing. And what would that be? What would the funniest thing be, Will Chamberlain, to do to a ship filled with 11 activists, unarmed, that are bringing nothing but awareness, empathy, and humanitarian aid to a starving people? Or what about the sitting US senator who threatened Greta and her colleagues by saying, hope Greta and her friends can swim? Mehdi Hassan wrote a sitting US senator threatening a convoy full of nonviolent activists, including Greta Thunberg, with a bombing. It's difficult to describe how sociopathic, unhinged, and criminal some of the pro-Israel folks have become. Sociopathic is the right word. Because I have never been so pro something or some space that would have me cheer on the death of peacekeepers. And we just kind of move along. Something like that 10 years ago would have had his fucking job. Now he can use it and fundraise off of it. It is terrifying that so many people are celebrating and cheering the possible demise of an entire fucking people. Because to utter a word about their humanity gets you labeled as an anti-Semite? Folks, the word begins to lose its meaning when this is how we use it. 2, a couple, engaged, working at the Embassy of Israel in Washington, D.C., at a museum, murdered. That's anti-Semitism. A little boy, Palestinian, 6 years old, stabbed to death by his neighbor. That's Islamophobia. But it also looks like this. It doesn't always end in murder, but it begins with the dehumanization through language. It allows you to create an us versus them. They're not really human. You see, as Donald Trump talks about his enemies as vermin, it is to say that he and MAGA, they're human. And the rest of us are animals, are insects, aren't worthy of life. It makes you easier to kill that way. It's why the erasure that this administration is doing, this project of erasing Black people, queer people, women, indigenous people from the American story, is to say that we don't matter. And we are only what they tell us that we are. And nothing more. And if you can erase all of those achievements and then rewrite the American story to once again solely and only center white cis hetero men, then you slowly but surely, year by year, decade by decade, put the others back in their place. We are living in sick, sick times. Tyler Oakley said of Lindsey Graham, in a good country, this kind of tweet would be disqualifying for public office. And I started to think about the phrase good country. And like I started out from the top, I know America's flaws. I've never been confused except in my youth, when at 15 I was called my first racial slur and I went home shocked and outdone. And I said to my mother at the age of 15, I thought racism was done. And my mother looked at me and said, "Oh, Danielle, I've done you a grave disservice." I was 15. The little boy, the little black boy, the 5-year-old little boy who that white, racist, disgusting woman, Shiloh Hendricks, called the N-word at a park, who is now raised close to $1 million for her racism, he doesn't have that story to tell. I was 15 when I was called the N-word. That little boy was 5. Decades upon decades removed. And that's how far we've regressed. So good country, I don't know if America can claim good country, because our new legacy looks like this. DOGE's USAID cuts have cost 300,000 lives. The frontman of U2, Bono, went on Joe Rogan's show, to the chagrin of Elon Musk, who wants everybody so desperately to love him, to think that he's so great and wonderful. And no matter how much money and how much stuff and how many fucking titles he has, he's still a fucking loser. And it shows. The Irish musician stated during appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience that a recent report suggests 300,000 people have already died as food rots in boats and warehouses as a result of DOGE's hard cut of funding to USAID. Elsewhere in the clip, Bono accurately stated that more than 50,000 tons of food is rotting in warehouses around the world rather than going to Gaza, rather than going to Sudan, because of cuts to USAID's global workforce. They're gone, Bono added, before prompting Rogan to react. And in the response, Rogan just was like parroting things that Elon Musk has said without any evidence whatsoever about the fraud and the waste and the this, that, and the other thing. In all of his 130 days of prodding through America's innards, he's only come up with $93 million. He's actually cost us more than the supposed waste that he's found. And in the meantime, the richest man in the world has killed the most vulnerable people in the world. And we sit here as if when we say 300,000, that those aren't babies and mothers and fathers and uncles and people. They're not just statistics and numbers, they are souls. And it just pains me. The level of greed and the lack of morality. These people that hold up Bibles that they don't read, spouting propaganda Christianity, not any teachings that I've ever heard about loving thy neighbor, about caring for the least fortunate. No, this flock of faux Christians laud hate and insults against the late Pope Francis, and now Pope Leo. I don't want us to get to a place, and when we do, we must pull ourselves out of this place that tells us, what difference does my voice make? What difference does my sharing make? What difference can I make? Talking, sharing, posting, reposting, calling your senators, calling your congressmen, calling your council members, volunteering. All of it combined makes a difference. Because the people in Gaza, the people in Sudan, the people in Ukraine, they need us to try. Donald Trump didn't get here just by sheer will. Donald Trump has always, and Trumpism has always undergirded America. And we cannot look away. Oh, it's not me. Oh, it is all of us. It is those of us that cheered on Obama without doing any of the work and thinking to ourselves that we were post-racial without going through any of the pains that any other nations have gone through. That we could just will our way out of racism, that we could just will our way, not recognizing what the setup was that was coming. That you can just say, well, let me just cut off my aunts and my uncles who are MAGA. Those are your people. They're not mine. So if you ain't talking to them, if you're not trying to challenge them, if you're not trying to bring them back to reality, then who the fuck's job is it? Everyone bears responsibility for how we fucking got here. Which means that everyone bears responsibility in how we get the fuck out of here. It is no more, oh, it wasn't me. Oh, I didn't do it. Then what? Then my follow-up question is, then what did you do to prevent it? Because you look at this, and I talk about mainstream corporate media all the time for a reason. Because lies and bullshit and gaslighting is what got us here. When I started my career in media, I didn't want to ruffle too many feathers. I didn't want to speak out of turn. I just wanted to be invited back. And then eventually I said, the fuck is the point of going on TV? What the fuck is the point of having a platform if all you're trying to do is keep that platform and not actually try and change anybody's hearts or move any souls or open up any minds? What's the point then? Lawrence O'Donnell, he's one of the last few real ones, boy. You know, using his privilege as a white cis hetero man and continuing to speak truth to power until they pull the plug on him too. But he said something, and I'm just going to play a part of it because the video is a little wonky that it was pulled from. But I want you to hear
the crisis facing this country and the world tonight is the complete collapse of mental acuity in the President of the United States, the current president. This weekend, the President of the United States endorsed a social media post that says there is no Joe Biden, executed in 2020, Biden clones, doubles, and robotic engineered, soulless, mindless entities are what you see. Needless to say, Donald Trump is the only president in history who can publicly embrace and accept and believe such insanity without immediately provoking a rush of questions by the White House press corps and news organizations around the world about the sanity of the American president, which means that the insanity of the current American president is now officially taken for granted in the news media. No huge banners on the cable news network that recently devoted itself to the issue of presidential mental acuity. That network did not dare devote itself to the mental acuity of Donald Trump. That network decided that the mental acuity of Joe Biden last year is a more important story now. No one at that network suggested that Joe Biden was ever incapable of doing the job of president. Their critique of Joe Biden is that he was incapable of delivering a sharp and polished television debate performance, which would have been true of every single president prior to John Fitzgerald Kennedy. What was lost in the relentless coverage of the Biden-Trump presidential debate was that after Joe Biden paused so long that he seemed frozen, that for the rest of that debate, no one appeared to pay attention to the rest of that debate. And the rest of that debate, Joe Biden actually made perfect sense. And Donald Trump did not. Donald Trump did not tell one true thing during that debate. But that doesn't seem to matter.
But that doesn't seem to matter. Because rather than us in media and those in corporate mainstream media do wall-to-wall coverage of what should be real questions about Donald Trump's capacity and mental acuity in reposting outlandish and wild conspiracy theories on top of holding up pictures in a Oval Office meeting with the president of South Africa with photos that are not even from South Africa and lying about white genocide. That instead of wondering why the president of this country is falling asleep at cabinet meetings and falling asleep at funerals and going off on tangents that don't make any sense, they will do their best to sane wash and say, oh, well, what Donald Trump really meant was X, Y, and Z, as opposed to saying, what the fuck was that? Is he okay? Because it doesn't seem like it. But sometimes karma works quickly. As Jake Tapper's Biden book promotion faces criticism, CNN's ratings drop for his show and others. Coincidence or blowback? Anderson Cooper, Aaron Burnett, and Caitlin Collins all saw their viewership drop 18% at the same time Tapper's ratings fell while promoting Original Sin. So when people say, I don't know what I can do, I am but one person, it isn't about what you as one person does. It's what we as a collective do, which is turn off the TV, pick up the phone, call your members, go into the streets. It begets a domino effect of courage. And then people like this, Jake Tapper, have to go off with their tails in between their legs. Because nobody wants your bullshit book. Because Joe Biden did more for the United States in the last 4 years than Jake Tapper has ever done. And even still, Joe Biden, now gone, has cancer. And this is what Tapper is spending his time doing. For the love of God. As I close out, it's just so rich that there's a little bit of infighting, right? But it's not really going to go anywhere. As Elon Musk starts to break away, now that his 130-day sledgehammer internship is done, so he can go back to trying to revive his failed brand. He's now starting to shit on the bullshit budget bill. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. I can think of other things that are a disgusting abomination. Any guesses? But what's even funnier is that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene all of a sudden have decided, now that the bill is passed the House and is at the Senate, to read it. Marjorie Taylor Greene posts, full transparency. I didn't know about this section on page 278 to 279 of the OBB whatever that strips states of the right to make laws or regulate AI for 10 years. I'm adamantly opposed to this, and it is a violation of states' rights. And Eric Swalwell did my work for me when he said, you have one job: to read the fucking bill. Literally, one job. I don't know what her district looks like. I'm kind of afraid for those people and what their education numbers were that would have them having the opportunity to get rid of her and then decide to double down and keep her as their representative, but to each their own. But as a member of Congress, one job: read legislation. Then you decide to vote yes or no. She says in full transparency. The full transparency is that you're a fucking idiot. That's the full transparency. But as I close out here today, we end where we began in talking about erasure and the importance of actually remembering. Hegseth has ordered Navy to strip the name of gay rights icon Harvey Milk from ship. Charlotte Clymer writes that Hegseth has ordered that the USNS Harvey Milk, named for the gay rights icon, be renamed. Harvey Milk served as a diving officer and later as a diving instructor for 4 years in the U.S. Navy. That this would happen at the start of Pride is intentional. And yes, to Gus's question in the chat, Harvey Milk was assassinated while he was in office. In California, one of the first, if not the first, openly gay representatives. Harvey Milk has a terminal in San Francisco airport named for him. He has a high school here in New York named for him and his courage and commitment to equity and justice. And I think to myself about the fragility of white nationalism. So on one hand, they tell us that people that are Black, people that are queer, that will never amount to anything, will never do anything. And then when we do, over and over and over again, our success, our gleaming light is too much for them. In a video that I posted last week, White Lies, Real Policies, I had a clip of Toni Morrison who said, what will they be without their racism, without their hatred? Are you any good? Are you only tall when you're standing on somebody else's neck? Does the achievement of Harvey Milk and other queer people in the military somehow negate straight people's achievement in the military? Does the achievements of the Tuskegee Airmen, of Harriet Tubman, of name Sojourner Truth, does it negate who you are? And if it does, are you much of anything at all? So those are the questions. But the work, to me, dear friends, when people are doing so much to erase, so much to hide, your job is to learn. Your job is to spread the truth. What don't they want you to know and why? Because white nationalism and the delusion of white supremacy is built off a belief system that only thrives on lies and gaslighting. The more truth you learn, the less power it has. So this erasure from everything from the Smithsonian to ships to curriculum, this admonishment of universities, this detainment of those that speak truth to power. Because the delusion of white supremacy cannot exist in the light of day. It needs shadows. It needs darkness. It thrives in ignorance. So what can you do? Learn. Read. Write. Real books. Ones that open. Because soon they will be gone. So it is important that we understand and recognize that our education is power. And our power is in us trying. We must continue to try. Because even if each of us move this country an inch, it's still further than we were the day before. And that, dear friends, should be our goal. I have to run today, so we will do Town Hall Tuesday tomorrow. So do keep your questions as you do, and we will do Town Hall Tuesday tomorrow. But I appreciate every single one of you, and all of these incredible donations that came in today. His Divine, thank you. Emmy D, thank you. Just Saying, thank you. LB, thank you. Barb, thank you so much. Corinna, Shirley, appreciate you. D, PJ, thank you so very much. As I say, this is independent media. Every single dollar goes to helping me provide the content that you all deserve. We are at, well, let me see, because something good is happening with the algorithm for us this week, y'all, because the numbers are moving, and I am appreciative of that. We are at 24,403 subscribers. So if you have yet to hit subscribe, please do hit that bell, subscribe to this channel. It costs absolutely nothing, which means, dear friends, we are 600 subscribers away from 25,000. So continue to share, like, comment, post, and feed the algorithm fairies to get this show and this channel into as many feeds as possible. I will see you all back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, and we will do Town Hall Tuesday on Wednesday. I appreciate each and every single one of you. As always, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I'll see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. And Substack, remember, 12 p.m. Eastern, the check-in with my friend Jared Yates Sexton. Make sure that you check me out at the Damn Digest on Substack. That show is live tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. And then I do another check-in, midweek democracy-ish, with Wajahat Ali at 3 p.m. Eastern on Substack. See you then, friends. Bye.